What's up? Hey, hello, everyone. Wow. So today we are back, finally, going to be doing our Survivor Season 46 cast assessment. We are just 2 days away from the season premiere of Survivor Season 46. So freaking excited. So, my name is Rachel.
I'm Alyssa, and this season really snuck up on me. I was like, oh, Survivor's starting soon, and I did not realize that soon meant 2 days. So, yeah.
Yeah. The hiatus went by so quick, too. I'm like, dang, mid December to mid February. So much has happened. We were podcasting The Traitors, and now Survivor's back. The time really flew by.
Yeah, I feel like having the traders definitely helped make it go faster.
Definitely. So, similar format for the other Survivor seasons in the new era. They are doing 90-minute episodes again this season, except the first 2 weeks are 2-hour long episodes. So, we are eating good this season with 90-minute episodes again. Hopefully, seeing more camp life, seeing more of the interpersonal relationships, the dynamics, the fun, like we saw some last season when they switched from the 60-minute to 90-minute episode.
Yeah, I feel like longer episodes are always going to be good. I hope that they maybe learned a little bit about how to edit the longer episodes, just because I think we still complained about how there were some things where I was like, why was this not shown? So hopefully we get a little bit of better editing as always. So yeah.
Yeah, 90 minutes is good for the first watch through. 90-minute episodes, a little bit rougher when you're podcasting and then you watch it a second time through in order to take notes. Then it's getting a little bit time consuming.
Mm-hmm.
But overall thoughts of this cast, when I first looked through everyone's bios, watched their little TV interviews, I was like, "Oh, wow." Like, there are a lot of, like, entrepreneurial people on this cast. There seems to be a lot of go-getters, like, type A personality almost. A lot of people starting their own business, quitting their job to pursue another career path, that kind of thing. So I feel like that's a similarity amongst these castmates.
Yeah, I feel like one thing that people have talked about a lot is it seems like Survivor is definitely leaning more into telling like about their backstory and like everything that led up to them being on Survivor. And I feel like a lot of these people have kind of like intense backstories. So it'll be interesting to see how much of that like shows up in, the season.
I agree. I wrote in my notes, it seems like a lot of people are very proud of their schooling, their education, rightfully so. A lot of people had difficult childhoods, it seems like, and a lot of people, family members, like battling with addiction. So maybe people bond with that out there, or we see it in little like segments on the show.
Hmm. So I'm excited to see how these people bond over kind of their similar stories.
Yeah, I also noticed it seemed like it's a lot of East Coast people, like a lot of Massachusetts, barely any California. Like usually you get like half the cast from California. Now it's like, okay, East Coast is seemingly dominating this season.
There's also like some people from the Midwest, like there's Illinois, there's Tennessee, there's Mississippi.
Mhm.
So not all
Yeah,
East Coast.
I was like, yeah, Eastern US, because I also was like, oh, there's a few from Michigan, like living there or like from there. I was like, okay, that's interesting because some of these states I feel like aren't necessarily super represented all the time, but it's like, okay, a lot of Eastern US, not necessarily just the East Coast.
Yep, and there's also one person who's Canadian and then one person who I think grew up in Canada. So we got a Canadian rep too.
I also thought it was interesting now there's more and more people who are not originally like born in the United States, whether they became US citizens later or they're just from like another country in general. So I was like, okay, are they casting more not US born people after Jam Jam and D winning Survivor and they're not like US born?
I think also it's just like a part of their diversity initiative where, having people who are immigrants, like that's part of the experience of living in the United States. Like there are people who immigrate here. So I think it would be a mistake to say that Survivor, represents people who live in the US if you don't also represent immigrants.
Definitely true and definitely a good change because I feel like a lot of times we did just see like US born people. So it is cool to see different perspectives, different stories from people not born in the US, whether it is just Canada or like other international countries is pretty cool to see.
Hmm.
So, for our cast assessment, we're going to go alphabetical by first name. As always, this is just Alyssa and I's opinions. We're basing it off of their little bio interviews that are just text based, as well as some YouTube video interviews that are like face to face with an interviewer. So, we don't know any of these people. We're just making judgments off of these little information that we get based off of these preseason interviews. They might be right, they might be wrong going into this season.
Yep, and I feel like people are different on paper than they are in real life. People are different when they think about going on the island versus when they're actually on the island. Like, we don't know anything. We're just vibing.
Yeah, it's just a fun thing to do. See after the season whether we are super right or super wrong about these people. So, we'll switch the screen. Once again this season, we've got our little photos up here on the screen, which we thought was very helpful when we first started doing these cast assessments, having the pics up there so we can visualize the people that we're talking about. Otherwise, sort of difficult. You're just talking about names without seeing a face. So,
Mm-hmm.
first up, we've got Ben, who is 31, from Florida, still in Florida. He is a musician and a music teacher. I thought his story background was interesting, quitting his independent record label. He said he was too concerned with status rather than like loving what he did, and he wanted to fall in love with life again. And I feel like nowadays, with like millennials and Gen Z, we see a lot of this rhetoric. And I'm like, okay, this is good. Like, people, for me personally, I don't think you should force yourself to do things that you don't want to do. Obviously, there are certain restrictions to that, but I think it's very admirable that he quit his own record label when it was becoming successful because he didn't like the person that he was becoming.
Yeah, I thought that was really admirable too. I think for me, one of the things that kind of confuses me about Ben is he says that people assume that he's a laid back, like surfer dude. And I'm like, from the 1 minute clip that we saw of him, I would never assume that he's laid back. Like, he very much gives the vibes of someone who's like, go, 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 go. So I'm like, in what world do people think you're laid back? Like, are you different because you're like talking about yourself to a camera, or are you different? Or are you just not good at describing yourself? So he also mentioned in his video that he didn't want to go out first. And I'm kind of like, is this foreshadowing?
I agree. Like, two people mentioned not wanting to be the first boot, and I was like, okay, yes, but I don't think you want to say it or speak it because then you're going to manifest it into existence. Like, if I have second thoughts about things or like negative thoughts about things that are happening, I would not want to say it out loud. Because then the whole like, oh, self fulfilling prophecy, maybe then my actions will more likely make the bad thing happen because I'm thinking about it too much. So, like here in Survivor, if you're like, my friend said I'd be first boot, I don't want to be first boot, or I have this XYZ personality, I don't want to be first boot. I feel like then you're maybe more likely to go into the game and then try to overcorrect. And then you end up being the first boot because you just come off like unnatural or bossy or stiff.
Yeah. And someone else mentioned, like, if I go out day 6, I'll go out in a blaze of glory. And I'm kind of like, maybe don't put that energy out.
I agree about the surfer bro comment though. I wrote in my notes, I was like, I don't really see it. The overalls that he's wearing, like this is a very close up picture, but I didn't think the overalls gave like surfer bro energy. I feel like Jelinski or maybe even Hunter later in the cast give off more like laid back surfer bro vibes. Maybe it's just because Ben does music, but I feel like he gives more Elvis vibes, and maybe he looks low key like Elvis.
I could see that.
Yeah, so maybe it's just the music, but I did not get Surfer Bro either.
Yeah, I think that would be a stretch.
Any final thoughts on Ben?
Said everything I have to say.
Yeah, I'd say maybe pre-merge.
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on where he gets put and who he gets put with and how good he actually is at creating, relationships with other people versus how good he thinks he is.
Yeah. So next up, we've got Banu, who is 41 from India, now in Massachusetts. He's an IT quality analyst. And at 41, that makes him, I believe, the second oldest person on the cast. So the oldest person is Maria, who is 48. And then Randon is also 41. So it's also very, I guess, skewed young-ish cast, considering there's only 3 people above 40. So with that, might be a little bit more difficult. I feel like we've seen in the New Era seasons, there's like 2 people over 40 only out of the entire cast kind of thing. But I feel like Banu gives very much high energy in the interviews that maybe people like he could fit in with the younger crowd.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that they've been talking a lot about diversity, but like age diversity isn't something that they've been, paying a lot of attention to in Survivor. Like I feel like saying like, oh, 41 is the second youngest is kind of like, But yeah, I think he could fit in with the younger crowd. I think my favorite thing about Banu is the fact that his husband is the Survivor super fan. Because I'm kind of like, that's a fun twist on like, I feel like we see a lot of super fans being cast recently. So having like your husband really love it is funny because then it's like, you probably don't know all the meta, but your husband is going to be at home yelling at the screen about how you're not paying attention to the Survivor meta.
And same as Jem on this season, in her interview, she said that her and her husband actually applied together, but she was the one that got the call back. So I feel like for Jem and Banu's partners, it's like, oh, are they low key jealous that their person got on and they didn't? And are they going to be like, I guess, like, yeah, obviously you'd be very, very supportive, but would you be like, oh, sort of backseat driving? Oh, you should have done this, you should have done that while the TV show is on.
I think also maybe their partners are hoping that they do well so that then if there's another blood versus water, you have an in. But I feel like there will
True.
definitely be backseat driving.
Like, oh, Banu, you messed up. But I think Banu seems very, very friendly. He in the video interview mentions how young everyone else looked and said they all look like 18 or in college and in high school. So it's like, okay, low key true because he is one of the oldest people out there. And I would want to know about, he talks about his expressive social media presence. So, like, is he an influencer already? Probably, because that wording seems weird.
Yeah, that wording did seem strange to me, but is what it is.
It's probably that's the high energy, and that's why he's, like, shouting in all of the interviews.
Yeah, I noticed that too, and I was like, "Are you just really excited?" Like, it's hard to tell because I think they interview them like right after they get to the island. So
Yeah, it definitely seemed very, like, TikTok turning it on for the camera, and, like, someone who does social media, you know how to turn it on versus off.
yeah, for sure.
So, next up, we've got Charlie, who is 26 from Massachusetts, still in Massachusetts, and is a law student. Looking at him, I did not think he looked 26. I thought he was like the token 18-year-old or 21-year-old on the cast, like the token young person of the season. But I'm like, that's what people would say if they looked at me also. So, it's better to look young, but I did not think 26.
Yeah, I didn't really pay attention to how old I thought he was. I think he just came out strong with like I talk like a law student because to me talking like a law student is talking like a jerk. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see whether or not he's able to like socially blend in with people because like the people that he chose as survivors he would play the game most like Spencer and Christian are not people where I'm like, ah, yes, social butterfly Spencer and Christian. So I think it'll definitely be interesting to see if he does play like them and how well his social game fares. Also, I feel like Spencer gets a lot of like mention in this cast, which is strange to me.
Yeah, Spencer seems to get a lot. There was no like less Parvati's, Boston Rob, Sandra's, but like those still come up. But sometimes it's like every single person is saying the same people. So we got some differences amongst this cast with their answers for that question. I feel like for me, Charlie definitely gives off smart nerd vibes. So I was like, okay, the Spencer Christian player I would be most like makes sense because he gives off that smart nerd vibe just like looking at him. And then saying he's from Massachusetts, I was like, okay. I had to look him up to see what school he went to. He went to Harvard undergrad and then Boston College Law now. So I'm like, I would wonder if he's going to share like Harvard or anything like that, because then I definitely think you would get pegged as the like young smart nerd. Like you would be, I don't know. I'd want to vote you out probably.
Yeah, and again, you kind of need the social game if you're going to be annoying and nerdy. So I'm curious to see how that goes.
But Charlie seems very athletic. He runs competitively, ran throughout college, runs marathons. That could be something to bond with castmates because there's a few other marathon runners, other outdoorsy athletic people, as usual, on this cast. But I don't know. I feel like Charlie low-key gives me like Zach Wurtenberger vibes, and that's why I thought he was like really young.
Mm-hmm. So first boot vibes is what I'm hearing.
Yes, so there's going to be a medevac. Actually, the guy with the eye issues will be medevaced, and then Charlie will be the first boot.
Hmm.
So next up, we've got David, who is going by his last name, Jelinski, who is 22 from Nevada, still in Nevada, and he's a slot machine salesman. He is the token young person of the season. He is 22 for him. I would not have guessed 22. I would think like maybe at least 24 or something like that. So he is the Sammy of the season. I wonder if he would lie about his age because I guess he's the youngest person out there. And maybe would you lie about your job because salespeople are getting a bad rep recently since Cody, as a salesman, said salespeople are not trustworthy. So I do wonder, is he going to lie or tell the truth about these things?
I feel like the reason I don't think he's 22 is because his voice is so deep. And so I think that like he could probably get away with saying that he's older. And I think if you say slot machine salesman, I feel like that's very different from any other kind of salesman. Like I feel like you could make slot machine salesman like, oh, I'm goofy, like I sell slot machines that are like what's the word? Like having a survivor slot machine or having like random slot, what is the word I'm thinking of? Like gimmicky slot machines. I feel like that's
Mm-hmm.
very different from like you're like, oh yeah, I'm trying to sell blah 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 to people. I think
Yeah,
also like he mentioned his dad was a bookie, so maybe he'll do something with that. But I feel like you probably don't want to tell people that you're a bookie on the team of Survivor.
yeah, I would think like if you mention like poker, casinos probably seem untrustworthy. And I do agree there would be a difference if he's like, I sell gimmicky slot machines like for funsies to like local arcades or to like local diners that have like this theme. But if he's doing contracts like multi-million dollar contracts with casinos to sell machines, I'd be like, yo, as a 22-year-old doing that, that is very impressive and that's like scary. You're good at talking then. I'd want to vote you out. But I feel like what's going for him, he does have that long hair and he does give that surfer bro vibe more so than Ben, who we first talk about. And like in his video interview, he says, yeah, surfer bro vibe. I look like I'm going to smoke a doobie on the beach. I laughed out loud. I thought that was very funny. So if he brings that energy to camp and like camp life, he's just fun to be around. He's cool to hang out with. Uh, I'm like, you'd keep him around because he's fun.
Yeah, I feel like he definitely could lean more into like the surfer bro vibes than Ben could. So I think depending on what he decides to say he does for a living, that could really change a lot.
And I think he's an interesting dude. He talks about his literature academic achievements. So I was like, I want to know more about that. Did you write a thesis? Are you published? Like, what does this mean? He also talks about having a ballet scholarship that he turned down. So I'm like, this dude is a lot of different facets, a lot of peel layers to go through. And he also says he's into trivia and puzzles, magic card games, and organization. So, like trivia, puzzles, magic, and card games, that would be very good for Survivor. Maybe he's got that analytical mind. I'd also want to know what organization means. Like, are you very highly organized? Are you like watching like Marie Kondo videos of organization? Or are you doing the organizing?
Yeah, there's so many layers. I feel like some of these people, they talk about like some like interesting stuff about their past, but then they drop like a bomb and it's never like fully explained. Like we'll talk more about some of the things where I'm like, why did you not say more about this? But yeah, I would like to hear more about his hobbies.
I agree. Seems like a very interesting, fun guy. So, next up, we have got Hunter, who is 28 from Mississippi, still in Mississippi, and he is a science teacher. He says he didn't go to medical school to become a teacher. So, I'm like, okay, dang. Similar to like what we've talked about, people making very large career choices, this too is a very large like career choice of not choosing a path and choosing a different path. So I'd want to hear more about that backstory there.
I also want to hear, he mentioned that he got into teaching because he was a substitute for his sister. Like I want to
Hmm.
hear more about his sister and like what did his sister say when he like decided to quit being a doctor in order to be a teacher? Like there's so much there that again, he kind of dropped it and then was like, "Okay, I'm going to keep talking about something else." So,
True. Maybe it's all a game plan for Survivor because I feel like if you say you're a high school science teacher, that's way less threatening than if you said, yeah, I'm a med student right now, or like I'm a doctor and I do neurosurgery like Voce. So I'm like, okay, maybe it's all part of the bigger plan because everything obviously revolves around Survivor. He chose not to go to medical school to lower his threat level, and now he's going to win.
yeah. I think it's interesting. I looked up the name of his like school because it sounded like it had an interesting name. It's like French Camp International School.
Hmm.
And apparently it's like a boarding school and it's a Christian boarding school for people to like learn life skills, it seems like. So that's interesting.
Definitely sounds very interesting. Another interesting thing, he said that he builds survivor challenges in his free time. So I'd want to know which ones. You know, is he like Carson doing Carson puzzles or is he building larger ones or just puzzles? I'd want to hear more about that. And I guess we'll see if it helps him on the island. Like, does he get a puzzle that he has made at home and has practiced? And does it win his team immunity or does it win him individual immunity?
Yeah, he also likes camping, which is great for Survivor because Survivor is basically very long term camping.
Yeah, Hunter seems fun. I feel like I'd want to be friends with him in real life. He too, I think, could give the surfer energy if he tried with like the sort of mullet, longer hair, and this like Hawaiian pineapple shirt. I feel like if he wanted to, he could try to do like the dumb vibe.
I feel like if you're from Mississippi, it's hard to pass off as a surfer though, because like, are you gonna be surfing the Mississippi River? Like, people are gonna be like, "Where did you learn to surf in
Yeah, not
Mississippi?"
surfer energy, maybe like country energy then.
I feel like he could do like Nick Wilson, country boy energy, like, "Aw, shucks."
Yeah, like JT or something. So there's Hunter. We next move on to Jem, who is 32. She is originally from South America and now in Illinois. Her job is an international brand mentor. She was the one her and her husband had applied together, but she was the one that got called back. I wonder, maybe if Jem does well, her and her husband can go on the Amazing Race together and then he can get on that show.
My pet peeve with this is that international brand mentor is like such word salad. And she like explained what she did in her video and she was like, yeah, I manage 2 stores. And I'm like, why are you calling yourself an international brand mentor then? Like, I have no idea what you mean when you say that. If you just say, I manage 2 stores, I know what that means. Like, who decided to call her an international brand mentor?
Yeah, like technically, I think they get to pick their wording and then maybe it gets approved kind of thing. So, but I do agree. It is like the Gen Z millennial sort of sounds like a fake job when everyone says they work in consulting and you're like, okay, what does consulting mean? Kind of thing. It is, yeah, I don't know. I thought from reading just International Brand Mentor, it's like you're helping branding and marketing for international businesses. But then, yeah, in her video interview, she's talking about managing storefronts.
Yeah, it was just confusing.
But she seems very outgoing. She's done a lot of adventurous things. She also seems very resilient, which I think could help her in the game. She says she came to the United States with just a suitcase. So, all good traits to have in the show, I think.
Yeah, I think it will be a good thing to have in the show. I think also, like, she comes from a country that not a lot of people, I think, in America could point to on a map. So I'm interested to see, like, maybe she'll be good representation for South Americans and especially for people from Guyana.
Agreed. I would want more explanation with her answer about who she would play most like. She says Boston Rob, Tony, and Kelly Wentworth. I'm like, okay, you can't just name 3 big names and not explain, but it does seem like for everyone's answers this season, they weren't explaining it. Usually people gave a sentence at least for their choice here.
I wonder if maybe they were told not to explain it too much just to let people speculate.
That's what, yeah, because no one else had a sentence when in past they did, but I'd want to know more about this.
Mm-hmm.
Next up, we've got Jess, who is 37 from Hong Kong and Toronto. Now she's in San Francisco. She works as a software engineer. And I was thinking, okay, if anyone tells me San Francisco, having gone to school out there, I would guess, yeah, software engineer, you work in tech or you work in consulting. So San Francisco software engineer makes sense. Although she did switch careers and just did like a coding boot camp in order to become a software engineer. So she too seems very entrepreneurial and hardworking. She started her own web design business and then she switched careers later in life to do software engineering.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. She was like, I wasn't even sure if I liked coding. And then, she figured it out. I also got a shout out. She's an identical twin. I have a
Hmm.
twin. So she's now my favorite. That's just the way it is.
She's also pretty cool. She like hand sewed this entire outfit that she's wearing. It's like the 2-piece jumpsuit, like top and bottom set. I was like, that's so cool.
Mm-hmm.
For her hobby, she says she enjoys binge watching 80% of a TV show, panicking about the time that has passed, and then reading recaps about the rest of the TV show. And I feel like nowadays, like talking TV with people, I hear this more and more where people actually aren't watching the TV show, but they're just reading the summaries online. Like 2 people in the past week have talked about this.
I think that's strange because it's like, if you aren't willing to like devote the time to a show, then maybe it's just not the show for you. And like, you don't have to like pretend to have watched it. You could just be like, yeah, I watched the first episode and it didn't catch my attention enough to keep watching. Like, that's perfectly valid.
Yeah, I guess it's a lot of people just can't sit down and enjoy their watching time. They have a lot of things to do, which I agree. So I usually watch my TV on faster speed so I can get through it and then
Mm-hmm.
have time.
I always set Netflix to 1.25 speed. So,
Oh, dang. I'm like at least 1.5 or 1.75.
wow, you're more hardcore than I am.
So maybe we're just as bad as Jess just reading the captions or the reading the recaps online. I'm like, I speed through it.
We speed through it. We're awful.
I can see her most likely to play be like player answer in Ty, Gabby, Marianne. She does seem fun and quirky. I would be a little bit worried about her though, because in the video interviews, it does seem like people were mentioning her as someone they don't really trust because she wasn't smiling to people at Ponderosa. And she said in her interview that she was trying not to smile at anyone and just like keep her head down kind of thing because she was nervous about it. So I guess we'll see how that translates onto the island if people potentially want to target her because they didn't get those vibes from the pre-show Ponderosa.
I think that's so silly that they're like, she didn't smile at me, so I don't like, bruh. I think sometimes people take like a little bit of information and take it too far.
Yeah. So we'll see how it plays out for her. Hopefully she can combat those like negativity around her when she talks on the island.
Hopefully.
So next up, we have got Kenzie, who's 29 from Michigan, now in North Carolina, and she is a salon owner. And I was like, dang, she's got really nice hair. I'm like, she has such long hair. It's so pretty. I'm like, I want her hair.
Don't worry, it's going to be ruined after 26 days of only being able to wash it using salt water. So,
And like her hair is so nice. And she says she's a business owner. She doesn't have a business degree. She started this business right before COVID. So it's been very difficult, like running a business, start of COVID. I'm like, dang, that is very, very impressive to do.
it is very impressive to do, and I feel like she's kind of just fun. And also she mentions that people think that like she's going to be a bimbo, and I think that's always interesting because people who are smart who pretend to be dumb, I feel like that's the best way that you can be in Survivor, as long as you're successful both at being smart and pretending to be dumb. Because I
Hmm.
think some people who think they're pretending to be dumb aren't actually as smart as they think they are. And then some people who think that they're playing dumb really well are not playing dumb as well as they think. And people totally know that they're smart in controlling the game.
Yeah, I think she could potentially play it off well. She does seem very fun and friendly from the video interview. Like, I don't know, sort of giving like Caleb vibes maybe, like, oh, you can be laid back and goofy, but also you can like be sort of strategic and create an alliance and do those things. A lot of people opposite of Jess, who we just talked about, said in their video interviews that they like Kenzie. They think she gives chill vibes. She's very smiley from these first impressions. They want to be her friend because of her hair, her tattoos, and it's like, okay, the bright red hair, very noticeable. The tattoos on both of her arms and both of her legs also makes her stand out. So it does seem like a lot of people potentially want to work with her on the island.
Yeah, so that'll be good for her. Strong starting point.
Yeah, I'm like, she does seem very fun and friendly. Like, I'd want to be her friend. Does seem chill.
Mm-hmm.
So, next up, we have got Liz, who is 35 from Michigan, now in Florida, and she is a marketing strategist. Her favorite hobby is making money. I laughed at that. I was like, okay, how making money? Making money from your job, or like, are you got side hustles that make money?
I mean, she said that she's basically her own brand now, right? So I imagine that like it's making money from her job, but she owns her job. So yeah.
Mm. I feel like I like her positive, I can do anything mindset. Like, I wrote in my notes that she truly believes in herself, and I wrote this after her first few answers in the written interview portion, and then just her rest of the interview literally reiterated this point. I'm like, "Dang, I like this mindset. Like, you can do anything you put your mind to. You truly believe in yourself." I'm like, a lot of more people need that mindset. And I think that's something like we can all take away with because you just you put your mind to it. I like that mindset.
I think it's also useful for a game like Survivor where some people are like not over invested, but they are very invested in how well they do. And I think if you're too invested, then that can actually get in the way of playing a successful game because you're pinning so much on just this one game of Survivor. So I think she and then Soda also mentioned this, like she loves her life. And, winning Survivor would be great, but not winning Survivor isn't going to ruin her life.
Yeah, and she says she wants to play the game most like Russell and Sandra. I would want to know more about that as well. I can definitely see her being cutthroat, not take any SHIT from people. Like, she definitely seems very hardcore.
Definitely.
So, next up, we've got Maria, who is the oldest person on this cast. She is 48, from Texas, still in Texas, and she is a parent coach. I want to know what a parent coach does.
To me, it sounds like someone who specializes in like parenting skills and helping new parents like navigate parenthood. So,
Mm. That would make sense. I would worry with Maria being the oldest person. There's not too many parents on this season or even people with kids on this cast, so maybe it could be harder for her to relate, especially because it does seem like a lot of her things she talked about was like being a parent, giving birth to her 3 children naturally, and doing a parent coach as a job. I wonder if that might, if she only talks about parenting, if that sort of draws a rift as like, oh, she's older than us because all of us don't have kids.
I think more people are parents than you would think because Liz and Randon and then someone else, I think Tim, all mentioned their kids in their interviews. So it's not like everyone is a parent, but like Liz, Randon, Tevin, and then Maria herself. That's 4 out of 18. That's still like a quarter of the cast.
Yeah, I guess less than a quarter. I don't know. I feel like with the lack of like older people, it could be challenging. But Maria has run 3 marathons, so she could relate to the other athletic runner people. I would say all is not lost.
Yeah, and as she says, I'm built for hard things. So I think that, it's not that big of a deal if you can't relate to someone just because you're a parent and they're not. Like, I think she still has enough life experience that she'll be able to find something.
Hopefully, I guess I was thinking of it like Michelle in Winners at War, thinking that there was a sort of divide between the older cast members and like herself being single, not being in a long term relationship, not having kids, compared to like the other people she's competing with who maybe have a long term partner or do have kids. If it is like a skewed younger cast, then I feel like having kids would potentially mean less. It's like, oh, I'm not just going to give them the money just because they have kids, compared to potentially older casts. They might factor more of like, oh, they might need the money more into the equation.
Yeah, I mean, I think Winners at War is just different in general because they all came in with pre existing relationships. And I think that might have been more of a deciding factor than the whole kids or not kids thing.
Yeah, I would want to know what a salsa vixen swimsuit calendar is. Is that like an
Me
inappropriate
too.
calendar?
Yeah.
I'm like, dang, okay, Maria, like, what age was this calendar at? And it sounds like an inappropriate calendar.
Yeah. Who knows?
So, next up, we've got Mariah, who is 28. She is from Florida, now in California, and she is a program coordinator. I really liked her outfit in this picture. Hard to see since this is like the headshot and not the full body, but she's got these short green overalls and like a bandeau top. I was like, I love this outfit. I want it.
Yeah, I didn't really pay that much attention to her outfit because, like, one of the first things she said was that, like, she might go out guns blazing on day 6. And I spent the rest of her interview being like, is this foreshadowing that she's going out on day 6? So I
Oh,
really
no.
don't pay as much attention to their outfits as you do. Like, you're out here judging people based on their, like, pineapple print shirt. And I'm like looking for foreshadowing in their interviews.
Yeah, you and Gabler's beard. I think that was the only one you really caught your
Yeah.
eye.
Gabler's beard is a statement piece.
Yeah, I'm like, I got the shopping itch. So I was like, where'd she get these overalls? I sort of want them. Although
Yeah.
denim might not be the best for water. I feel like, yeah, Bryce Isaiah does his Purple Pants podcast First Look, where he just like judges the people based off of their outfits and what they look like, no other information. So I'm like, I want this outfit, but I like her. She moved to a new state without really anything or like knowing what to do kind of thing. She's a planner and she makes a lot of Google sheets, which reminded me of myself. And she ran a marathon. That is very cool. And she says that she second guesses herself a lot. That might be bad for the show, where I feel like you might need to trust your gut a little bit, considering, like, oh, whether you play an idol or not, do I trust this person to work in alliance with them? Is my gut telling me that maybe I'm getting votes tonight? That kind of thing. So hopefully she doesn't like second guess herself or have too many issues with like confidence on the island.
Yeah, the Google Sheets thing also spoke to me. So I hope that she does well. I hope she's not going out on day 6 just because she seems like an interesting person.
Yeah, she says she wants to play like Nick Wilson, which I thought that was interesting. I'd want to know more. What part of Nick Wilson?
Me too, especially because I don't see a lot of similarities between them. Like, it's not like she's like a white boy from the South. Like, what? What about him? Yeah.
Yeah, I'd want to know. Yeah, because it's like she's not a law student or a lawyer or anything either. I'm intrigued.
Hmm.
So, next up, we've got Q, who is 29 from Mississippi, now in Tennessee, and he is a real estate agent. I would not expect his hobbies. He lists his hobbies as fishing, riding four wheelers, jet skis, and building houses. I feel like from just his picture, he didn't look that tall, but then I feel like compared to other people, he's actually like very tall and very built. So then maybe that makes his hobbies make more sense. But just from his picture, I was like, dang, I would not expect these hobbies.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that he's a real estate agent and one of his hobbies is building houses. Like, isn't that like, does he build houses to sell himself? Does he build houses for like Habitat with Humanity? Like, I want more about that. I feel like he's another one of those people. He just drops a bomb and then just walks away. Like, he's one of 17 kids. And I'm like, what number are you? Like, how did you end up as one of 17? Like, he went from like not knowing anything about real estate to being the second top real estate agent in the country. I want to know how they determine who the top real estate agent in the country is. Like, I have so many questions, Q.
I'm like, hopefully on the show he talks about all this and like the family situation too. Cause I also wrote in my notes, like, which number is he in all the kids? It's like, are all of them related, or is it like a cheaper by the dozen family where it's like two large families merging together? Like in those movies, there's like 20 kids because each one had 10 going in and then they got married. So I'm like, oh, is everyone related or like what in this situation? Very intrigued. I also want to know, he says that he's the luck, like his friends would describe him as the luckiest person they know. Like, how are you lucky? I want to know. Are you winning
There's
things?
so
Like,
much
are
I
you
want to
winning the
know.
lottery? Yeah. How are you lucky?
I guess we'll find out.
Yeah. And I want to know how I can become lucky.
Me too. I'd love like a book. So,
Exactly. Like, if you're lucky in winning things or getting the what you want, I want to know the ways.
mhm.
So, next up, we have got Randon, who is 41 from New York, now in Florida, and he is in aerospace tech. Hobbies are running endurance marathons, sports cars, extreme rides, and sports. Looking at his picture, I also low key would not expect it until he mentioned that he's in the military. And then I'm like, okay, he does look military.
Yeah, I can see that. I guess I also like didn't really see him as like a big military guy. So,
Maybe I just thought he looks like this guy from the gym who's also military, and they look very similar. And so it just gave military vibes.
yeah. I think my big question with Randon is again, I wish they made people like explain their who they want to play
Mm.
Survivor like, because he says that he wants to play Survivor like Xander, and I'm like, again, Why? Like, what about him makes you want to play the game like him? I, I say this every time we do a cast assessment, but every time they choose someone to play the game like who didn't win the game, I'm like, why would you want to play like someone who lost?
Yeah, I also wrote in my notes, Xander, oh, that is, like, pretty interesting. 'Cause I'm like, okay, usually you think maybe, like, personality or maybe age range-wise, like, a young person might say Xander or Marianne because they're young. I'm like, "Okay, what part of Xander are you referencing here?" Like, probably not his age, how he played the game, his background, like, which part?
Yeah, that's what I want to know too.
But, yeah, Randon seems chill. Seems like a cool guy.
I mean, his daughter says that she thinks he's going to go out first. So again, I want to know, why are these people putting the bad juju out? Like, is he going to be the first boot? Tell me more.
Yeah, you gotta tell the daughter to chill. Don't manifest that bad energy here. But that's like
Exactly.
a hopefully a jest. Like parents might say that to their kids, kids might say that to their parents as a fun way. She probably doesn't mean it and hopefully isn't manifesting it. But like he did say she was gonna throw like a day one you got voted out party for him. So seems odd. How old is this child?
Who knows? I guess we'll find out depending on how long he lasts in the game.
Yeah. So next up, we have got Soda, who is 27 from New York, now in New Jersey, and she is a special ed teacher. What stood out to me, she said she got married very young, only after knowing the person for 6 months, but it has worked out. And I'm like, dang, 6 months? That's pretty quick. And she's deathly afraid of butterflies.
Yeah, that was a weird one. I think Soda, I really liked her just because, again, she seems like someone who's very grounded in herself, someone who like wants to play Survivor, but like won't die if she doesn't do well in Survivor. I think the only thing that I was confused about is she was the question of what past Survivor would you play the game most like. Her answer was season 42.
I wrote that in my notes too. I was like, what does this mean?
I'm like, every person in season 42? Do you want your season to be like season 42? Like, that seems like something where if you're the producer who gets handed this questionnaire, you like nudge her and be like, Soda, like, what do you mean? Like, don't just leave that nonsensical answer.
Maybe she did this on purpose, and it's like, oh, because right now, if you just read season 42, you might just think she read the question wrong or she, like, doesn't know what she's doing, but maybe she's secretly a super duper duper fan and she wants people to talk about her, so she says a weird answer like this, misread the question. Instead of saying one person, she says a whole 18 people, all of them.
She's playing 5D chess.
Yeah. So I don't think there's any butterflies on the island, so that's probably good for her. She does talk a little bit about trauma making her resilient, but doesn't really mention anything, so maybe we will learn about it from her on the island.
Yeah. I would love to hear more about that too, but then also some people are like, you shouldn't have to trauma dump to be on Survivor. So,
Exactly. If she wants to share, she can share. If not, we shall not learn about it.
mhm.
So next up, we have got Tevin, who is from Goochland, Virginia, and still in Virginia. I wrote the like county name there. I was like Goochland. That's a great sounding, funny
I was
name.
gonna say Goochland. I love that. We should like take a road trip to Goochland.
I think
I
the
think
United States should be Goochland, like the Gooch. We're in Gooch.
mhm. I think
Uh,
Tevin is an actor. He's
mhm.
24. And the thing I want to know is if he's going to lie about being an actor. Because I feel like you can't tell the truth about being an actor. That's even worse than telling the truth about being a salesman. Like, how do you tell people, like, yeah, I act for a living, and then expect them to be like okay with you lying to their face? Like, that's not gonna work.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I'm like, actor. We saw it come up in the traders this season where people are saying, oh, this person's an actor for their regular TV show. So therefore, they could be a better liar to us because they're used to acting. So if I were Tevin, I would lie about this job because you just don't want any weird suspicions on you for anything. If you say you're an actor and then people might make a connection, okay, so maybe you can cry on cue. How can I trust what you are saying because maybe you're just acting with me kind of thing? So I agree, I would lie about it.
Mm-hmm.
But Tevin seems very outgoing. He has a lot of energy based off of his friend comments in the questionnaire portion of the interview. He's also very high energy in the video interviews and in like these confessionals from the Survivor previews. He is like always shouting. So I do wonder, maybe it's a good thing, maybe it's a bad thing if it annoys people.
Yeah, I think it can really depend because I think like Cody, when we first saw his like
Mm.
interviews, we were like, this man is gonna be so annoying. And then people like loved him. So I think it can really depend on like how your energy comes across. And also like energy is different across the screen. So like what we might perceive as annoying energy might just be really excitable energy in person.
That's true. So it will be interesting to see what happens on the island. Like, is it annoying energy or is it not? He, for the what would we not be able to guess about you question, he says that he's a country boy at heart and doesn't mind getting messy. I was like, okay, yeah, I wouldn't be able to guess that. And maybe Goochland is more rural.
Yeah, I was gonna say the fact that I've never heard of Goochland, despite us living close to Virginia, makes me think that it's more rural.
It's the land of Gooch. Ah,
It's
so good.
Gucci.
So next up, we have got Tiffany, who is 33 from New Jersey, still in New Jersey, and she is an artist. She says that she lives in the land of rainbows and unicorns. She's a habitual procrastinator and has no filter, which reading that in her questionnaire portion, I was like, ooh, that might not be that good. But then in her video interview, I feel like she comes across very well and like very level headed. So hopefully these bad things don't come into the game of like procrastinating or no filter when you like be mean to someone or like people don't want to work with you kind of thing.
My thing about her is that like half of her interview was her being like, "How am I going to be able to survive for 26 days?" And I'm like, are we foreshadowing a quit or is this just like a joke? Like I think because we had two quitters last season, I'm kind of like on edge. Like are more people going to quit? So I think her making a big deal about like how am I going to do this for 26 days makes me
Exactly. Yeah. Don't manifest it into existence. You got to keep the good vibes rolling. She also says she likes to loves actually, not just likes. She loves to play the lottery. And I was like, "Oh, that might not be good in real life kind of thing, but if she really likes gambling, she should talk to Jelinski."
she's gonna get it to the survivor auction and buy one of the covered like things at the auction and it's gonna be like toad eyeballs or something. That's gonna be my prediction for Tiffany.
That would be funny. I think Jeff did say though no auction for 46, which is so weird considering I feel like it went well in 45.
Well, maybe they wanted to see the fan reaction to the auction in 45 before
Boo.
committing to doing it in 46 again, but yeah.
Terrible. Because one person in the cast said that they would want to see the auction again as their hot take of season 46. But
Mhm.
alas, they missed this season by one.
Yeah.
So, next up, last penultimate person, we've got Tim, who is 31 from Virginia, now in Georgia, and he is a college coach. I thought it was very cute. He mentioned his wife a lot. Dating his wife is a hobby of his, saying she is something that he is most proud of, her and their children together. And he talks about her in the video interview too. And I'm like, dang, we all need a man who loves their wife so much.
Indeed. But I also think there's been some backlash against like wife guys recently because a lot of people are like, if you talk so much about how much you love your wife, like it's a little sus because a lot of men who are like, my wife is so great, then go on to like cheat on their wife or something. So it's like, questionable.
Oh no, that's so sad.
Yeah, but I think Tim, I was very confused at first when he talked about how he wanted to be the most like Shamar Thomas, because I was like, what? And then I figured it out because he's had 2 eye incidents, and then Shamar had to be medically evacuated because of an eye infection. So maybe he's like making a tongue in cheek joke about the eye thing, because I would hope that you would not like aspire to be like Shamar Thomas for your one try at Survivor, because that man was not good at Survivor.
Yo, I wrote that in my notes too. I was like, oh, this is a blast from the past. This is sort of random. I agree that it's got to be because of Shamar getting medevaced for the eye infection, where Tim's 2 eye incidents are really wild. Like getting a hanger in there and then sticking glue in your eyeballs. It's like, how does he not wear glasses? Or like, does he got bad vision now kind of thing? Like, those sound so scary and so dangerous. So I feel like it is a joke because I agree. Like, why would you want to say you want to be like someone who caused issues around camp or wanted to quit the game? I'm like, it's probably an eye joke. But yeah, I think it's funny and hopefully not him manifesting himself getting medevaced.
If he gets medevaced because of an eye issue, I will truly believe that God has abandoned him, because like there's no other explanation than that. So
But maybe it could be easier having 2 eye incidents in the past, that maybe it's easier for you to have an eye incident in the future, or it's like Jessica from Millennials versus Gen X having that eye infection that looked so gnarly on TV. Like, maybe you're more susceptible to eye issues because he's got all this crazy things happening to his eyeballs.
you can have chronic eye infections.
Oh
So
gosh, that's scary.
just saying.
But Tim seems cool. I like the college coach stuff because I'm interested in that, but yeah.
Yeah. He just seemed like a cool guy. He likes his kids, he likes his wife, he likes his eyes.
Yeah, eyes, kids, wife. Maybe not in that order.
Yeah, hopefully not in that order.
So, last but not least, we've got Venus, who is 24 from Canada, still in Canada, and she is a data analyst. I love her name. I love alliteration names. So, she's got a V first name and a V last name. I'm like, I love it. Love alliteration. I think her outfit is so cute. Like, she's got this top in the picture, and then she's got these like bell bottom orange pants. But I would think this shirt, I would not wear it out onto Survivor.
Yeah, I feel like that shirt would be really like not warm for one thing, but then also not secure. Like, whew.
Yeah, like it being cold at night, I wouldn't really want a holy shirt. And then I feel like battling the elements, like these, the middle part might break.
Yeah, that would be bad. Like, what do you do if your shirt like rips or like is unusable?
Gotta borrow someone else's shirt. I'm like 10-10 cute outfit. Like I would wear it on the day today, but Survivor, I would want a full t-shirt so I can use the entire thing.
Mm-hmm.
But in her interview, she says she has a tough exterior, but she is a secret softie. I hope this doesn't translate poorly into the island where maybe it's hard to get to know her because she comes off like having a RBF resting bee face. Maybe people think that that she doesn't like them because maybe she's more straight faced and stoic. She says that her threshold to earn trust is very high, so that might also be an issue, but like once you earn her trust, she would have that trust with you. So hopefully she gets to the softy side with people, able to like emotionally connect with people and not just having that tough exterior that pushes people away.
Yeah, I think sometimes I feel like being slow to trust can be a good thing in Survivor, because I feel like sometimes people choose their number one like way too early in the game, and then they realize later on, like, oh shoot, this is not actually a good number one to have. So I think that maybe being slower to trust might be helpful if you can trust people like temporarily enough to work together, and then take your time in picking who you're going to go to the end with, and not being one of those people who like picks the random person on the first day to be their number one.
Yeah, so I'm excited. Venus seems very, very cool. So I feel like I'd want to be her friend in real life. She seems very chill.
Yeah, I feel like she seems really cool. I really like that she talked about wanting to get into immigration law and help refugees. Like,
Mm.
that's awesome.
Yeah, she also talked about wanting to be the first Persian winner, and so that's very good as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that is all 20 all 18 of the cast for season 46 of Survivor. I'm excited. We've got 2 days until the start of the season. The cast seems very well-rounded, a lot of big personalities, so it'll be interesting to see who fights with who gets voted out early, and who tries to take power.
Yeah, I think it's always interesting to see how people are like once the rubber really hits the road.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, lots of TV happening with Australian Survivor, The Traitors ending, and Survivor Season 46 starting. So let us know in the comments down below what you think of Survivor Season 46's cast. Who do you like on this cast? Who do you dislike? Who do you think is going to be the first to boot? Who do you think is going to be the winner of this season? Definitely let us know in the comments. Thank you all.